Episode 13. Why is development important? In the white hall of the temple, it was fresh and cool. A gentle breeze passed through the semi-transparent curtains, lifting and lowering them. The windows were wide open, and in the distance, exotic birds poured out their songs. Peace and tranquility reigned in the hall and in the hearts of the disciples who had come here for another spiritual conversation with the great sage. The keeper of knowledge was already awaiting his protégés, greeting them with a benevolent smile, sending rays of warmth and unconditional love. The sage met each of the disciples with a gaze, directing his positive energy towards each one. Before the disciples could settle down, the first question resonated. "Wise teacher," spoke a softly voiced, red-haired girl with eyes as transparent as two lakes. "Lately, I've been tormented by strange thoughts. I increasingly think that I don't need spiritual development, that everything is fine with me as it is. And then I push away those thoughts myself. Please, tell me, why is spiritual development necessary? Diana, if a person doesn't pursue the path of development, they begin to degrade. Everything cannot be constantly fine," the sage replied. "Imagine, for example, what would happen if you didn't develop at all. If you couldn't read, write, or take care of your hygiene, what would become of you then?" The great sage scanned the hall with an assessing gaze. "I think we would turn into animals, dogs, rats," Diana replied. "Yes, we would remain at the lowest level of development, like dogs, howling at the moon, barking, walking on all fours. That's why a person cannot do without growth. They need to constantly improve themselves, otherwise they will descend to the level of mindless livestock. The more we develop, the better off we are," the teacher concluded his thought. "Keeper, tell me, is our development somehow connected to the chakras?" asked a dark-haired young man in a loose linen shirt. "It's very good that you asked that question, Kirill," the sage replied with a smile. "Our development is directly dependent on our chakras. That's why it's important to develop all aspects of the soul evenly. Only then can we achieve complete spiritual growth. Let's take the Muladhara chakra, for example. If it is not developed, diseases, weakness, and laziness set in. Of course, it may not be strongly felt in youth, but it will make itself known later." "Yes, I know someone like that, whom diseases have devoured," sadly spoke a tall student, her light hair braided into a fluffy braid. She used to be a ballerina, but then she left the stage, didn't want to work or develop anymore. Laziness consumed her, and now she's still young, but diseases have plagued her. She doesn't even leave her house. A collective sigh of sympathy swept through the hall. Each of those present knew someone who had abandoned their own growth. "That's a vivid example of how the Muladhara chakra deteriorates in a person without physical activity," the sage uttered. "Without physical activity, there is no strength, no energy, and no pills can help. That's why it's crucial for all of us to grow on the Muladhara chakra." "Teacher, what will happen if the Svadhisthana chakra is not developed?" the student with the braid asked again, lifting her eyes to the sage. "Agatha, Svadhisthana is just as important as all the other chakras," the keeper of knowledge spoke, intertwining his slender fingers. "If a woman does not develop her Svadhisthana chakra, she cannot become desirable to a man. Everything will slip through her fingers. She will be clumsy and unable to take good care of herself. And worthy men, those with high levels of energy, won't even pay attention to her." "Great sage, please tell us more about the Manipura chakra," requested an elderly man with dimples on his cheeks and silver-gray hair on his temples. "If there is no development in Manipura, a person will be plagued by constant failures in work and finances. They will be deceived, their business will fail, and they won't receive promotions at work. They will always remain a fool. It's all because the necessary chakra is undeveloped," the sage explained. "I had a close friend who experienced the same situation," the student spoke again, lowering his gaze. "Everyone always told him, 'You work so hard at the flea market and earn next to nothing, and your brother is having fun, enjoying life, and earning 1,000,000 times more than you. Why does this happen?' And he didn't even know the answer to that question. He couldn't understand why he had such bad luck. A good example, Andre, praised the sage. Without personal development, a person doesn't even realize what's wrong with them, and therefore they can't solve their own problems. It's essential to always strive for growth. If you want your own business, then you need to engage in business magic. Develop specific chakras. Learn from wise people who have already achieved success. Otherwise, there will only be degradation. Dear teacher, please tell us about the Anahata chakra, Agatha requested again. It was evident that the topic deeply touched her heart. If a person doesn't develop on Anahata, negative emotions will devour them. They will always suffer, experience sadness, frustration, and pain. But if this chakra is developed, elevated emotions and happiness will arise. It is crucial to work with this chakra. If not, a person may become a miserable psychopath, as their nerves won't be able to handle it. The sage paused and continued. The next chakra is Vishuddha, which is responsible for the creative aspect in a person. All poems, beautiful songs, and great paintings are born from here. If this chakra is not developed, a person will have no talent or creative abilities. If ajna is not developed, a person will become foolish. They won't be able to think, comprehend. All processes will be slow for them. It's necessary to make an effort to develop this chakra because without it, no thought process is possible, and therefore, development will be hindered. Teacher, what is the next chakra? The highest one? Asked one of the students, looking at the keeper through the lenses of her wide glasses, with thick lenses. Darya, the next chakra is Sahasrara. If a person doesn't develop on that chakra, they will never reach the highest level and become a god human. They will forever remain only at the level of an animal. Such a person confines themselves to a limited state, as if locking themselves in a cage, the keeper replied. Oh, great teacher, Diana pleaded, turning to the keeper. I'm confused. We have so many chakras, and each one is responsible for something different. Which one should we focus on developing? The sage kindly smiled at the girl, sending rays of calmness, warmth, and understanding. You need to develop all your chakras evenly within yourself. Then everything will work out for you, and you will be able to become not just a human, but a superhuman, he said. The earlier you start developing the chakras, the better. Don't be afraid to make efforts, face discomfort, and risk. Only in this way can you achieve the development of all the chakras. But if you, on the contrary, avoid making efforts, identify with laziness and negative emotions, then you will begin to degrade to the level of pigs and dogs. Development is the most important thing. Keeper of Knowledge, a handsome young man with delicate features and deep black eyes, addressed the sage. I have been trying to progress through the development of ajna, but I have noticed that tasks are coming to me from various spheres. I felt that I needed some solitude to be alone and contemplate what was happening. But new, urgent tasks kept pouring in on me continuously. Is it supposed to be like this? Yes, Herman. To progress through ajna, you need to activate yourself to the maximum. If a person is in a lazy, meaningless state and doesn't want to do the tasks, they will never be able to develop. You always need to be active. And as soon as laziness sets in, start getting angry at yourself. That will motivate you to work, and a clear plan of what to do will form in your mind. The main thing is to activate yourself, to get out of the passive tamasic state. Then we will do everything 10 times faster, and everything will work out for us, the sage explained. Teacher, can you tell me, in working with the chakras, should we strive to structure everything, or should we trust the will of chance and let things go as they go? Diana turned to the sage again. Structuring, of course, is necessary, the keeper replied with a kind smile. But your main helper is always the mentor. They will tell you how to organize everything, how to structure it, and they will guide you on the best path to achieve your goal. This way, development becomes faster and easier. You need to learn to trust your teacher, rely on their thoughts, and try to see and feel the world as they do. Only then can you spiritually grow and develop to your fullest potential. Without the mentor, everything is meaningless. The student smiled, each of them knowing that they had already found their spiritual teacher and could turn to him with any question. And a new hand had already risen. Keeper of knowledge? A green-eyed woman in her 40s stepped forward, gray strands peeping out from under her silk scarf and falling on her forehead. Tell me, am I understanding correctly that if we work with the chakras, we can develop all our inner qualities? Yes, Maria, the teacher answered warmly. Of course, but you need to work on all the chakras. Then we will be happy. We will be able to combat negative emotions and states. Teacher, is it true that on television, all they do is cultivate these negative emotions? Herman asked, because they constantly show scenes of quarrels, fights, and conflicts. Yes, the sage replied sadly. That's their way of trying to convince us that such behavior is the norm of life, that we don't need to work on ourselves, and that personal development is unnecessary too. In reality, though, hysterics, psychosis, and the like are the result of not working on the emotional center, anahata. If you develop your spiritual state, work with the chakras, then such things won't exist. Teacher, I notice that I often make excuses. Everything is fine with me, everything is normal, and there's no need to take any action. Am I right in thinking that excuses reside in the Ajna chakra? Maria asked, looking at the sage with hope and love. Yes, justification arises in Ajna. It's the result of self-deception. We cannot allow that. We must remember that every excuse is a step towards hell. By justifying ourselves, we agree that everything is fine with us and that we don't need to develop. That's how people begin to deteriorate and literally rot from within, the sage explained. Poor people, exclaimed a young dark-haired girl in a wide orange saree with golden patterns. They suffer because of their laziness. They need healing. Yes, Alexandra, the keeper agreed. These people suffer themselves from such a meaningless existence, and they only soothe themselves by believing that everything is fine. To heal, they need to repent, see their flaws, and start working on themselves. In every negative thought, word, and action, they need to repent, to look, to see imperfection, and not to soothe themselves with empty lies, but strive to eradicate their shortcomings. Only then will development come to such people, and they will be able to heal. The sage concluded his thought. And another question echoed in the hall. Keeper of knowledge, please tell us about superpowers, Daria requested, her eyes filled with curiosity. Am I correct in understanding that superpowers are the highest level of development for each chakra? Yes, Daria, you are right, the keeper replied. To manifest abilities, you need to raise the level of energy, activate yourself fully, and get out of the passive state. Then, superpowers will arise. I once heard something similar, Herman said uncertainly. My friend was walking in the forest and encountered a wild bear. He got so scared that he climbed up the tallest tree, even though he had never been into sports, but then he couldn't come down. He was afraid of heights. The students laughed, and the keeper of knowledge answered with a smile. Yes, Herman, you're right. That's a vivid example of how a person activated themselves, and superpowers saved them. But at that time, it happened spontaneously. However, everything can be controlled if you raise your energy and accumulate personal power, and this can only be achieved through long spiritual practices and exercises. The evening air danced through the white hall, playing with the curtains. Today's conversation was short but rich. The students looked at the sage with gratitude and love because they had gained valuable new knowledge today. As a farewell, the keeper recited a beautiful poem, the words of which were deeply ingrained in the students' memories. O Almighty, be with me, bring me the spirit of bliss, and in Santan I will live, in complete perfection and greatness. I am now in solitude, and my soul is pure. In my heart, there is tranquility. Life is beautiful and sacred.
In our extreme times, when the fate of the entire planet is at stake, it is crucial for the knowledge of angels and benevolent spirits to spread as quickly as possible, globally, and reach thousands of people. In this way, we can change the future of all humanity. which is why we are addressing you, dear soul of light. Spread the knowledge about our wise books and films. Share links to videos or cartoons. All of this is available and free. Invite women to individual practices, webinars, and seminars. And the Great Spirit of Light will help you and your family. It will direct an enormous amount of energy to fulfill all your desires. Benevolent spirits and angels will assist you and your loved ones in all matters. A thread of light and love extends from your heart to the hearts of thirsty women, and the creation of good and the dissemination of enlightened knowledge throughout the world begins. Become part of the mission of light. Help people, and God will help you.